so much for being here, Kevin. So,
Good to be here, Jake.
Mayor-elect Mamdani has touted 4 signature policies to help bring prices down for New Yorkers. There's universal child care, free buses, city-owned grocery stores, and a rent freeze on rent-stabilized apartments. Is there anything there that the White House will work with Mamdani on?
Look, President Trump made it clear that he loves New York City and he wants it to be successful. And he brought the mayor down to talk about basically those policies and other things that we could do to make life in New York more affordable. Now, none of those really jump off the page for me as really strong ideas, but I think that if Mamdani cares as much as he appears to for the people of New York, and that President Trump obviously does, I think that there's a lot of positive work that can be done together.
Well, right before the election, President Trump threatened to withhold federal funding from New York City if Mamdani were elected. Was that just all bluster? He didn't mean it?
Well, it feels like he doesn't mean it now, and I guess we'll have to wait and see what Mamdani does. I think that we are really reassured that we've kept the police commissioner, and so in previous administrations in New York, we've seen law and order really go south. As you know, Jake, I've lived in New York quite a while. I was a professor at Columbia at NYU Law School, and New York always feels like the safety is on the edge, and so the fact that Mamdani, the mayor, has agreed to keep the police commissioner is this kind of sign that maybe he'll be able to work together with President Trump. We're sure hopeful that we can. And President Trump really wants to work with everybody who cares about the future of American people. We're at times disagreeing about policies, but I think that the objective of making life better for everybody is something that a lot of people share on the Democratic and Republican side.
Let's talk about affordability. In a Truth Social post, the president said prices are, quote, already coming down, unquote. Now, it is true, some items are coming down. That's accurate. But overall, prices are going up. Prices in September were 1.4% higher than in January and 2.4% higher than they were in September 2024 under President Biden. Is this actual data being kept from President Trump?
No, look, the inflation is coming down. There are a lot of prices that are coming down. Inflation is coming down. And I think that if you go year over year, then you're putting the really high Biden inflation years for the second half of last year, you're saying that's President Trump's fault. Don't forget that December and January, you're looking at 0.4s and 0.5s for inflation. So you multiply that by 12, you get really big inflation numbers. So inflation is coming down and the prices of a lot of things are coming down. But the bottom line is, and this is something that I really would like to emphasize, is that because of the higher inflation and because of the higher interest rates, the typical mortgage for the average American in the U.S. went from about $1,200 to about $2,400. That's the monthly payment. At the same time, because grocery prices went up at 1.9%, on average 5%, then that added hundreds and hundreds of dollars more of expenses per month. We did some estimate at the National Economic Council that all in the extra monthly cost or extra annual cost for all of that stuff, the higher mortgage and everything else under Joe Biden, was about $25,000 for a typical family. And so we're making progress. The mortgage rate has come down a couple $100 a month. A lot of grocery prices have leveled off or come down. But there's a lot of progress to be made. We understand why people are frustrated. And it goes to show why inflation is such a terrible thing and such a powerful political influence. I'm sure that inflation is one of the main reasons why Trump won in a landslide.
Right, but the prices are up more than 2 percentage points from last September compared to September 2024 compared to today. And yesterday morning, President Trump posted on Truth Social, quote, "I have just gotten the highest poll numbers of my political career. While my great work on the economy has not yet been fully appreciated, it will be. Things are really rocking." I don't know what poll numbers he's referring to because CBS News YouGov poll has 75% saying the president's not focused enough on lowering prices. Fox poll, Trump's lowest economic approval rating of his second term, just 38%, a plurality, saying he's actually making things worse. Vice President Harris writes in her book about President Biden, the top Biden aide, quote, Mike Donilon, would filter the data from the polls and present the numbers in soothing terms, unquote. Is that happening with President Trump, too? Is he only getting the most positively skewed polling information?
Well, Jake, as you know, I'm not the poll expert, but the people that are briefing the president all the time. And the bottom line is that if you look at where the economy is moving, that there have been a lot of positive movements. And so you mentioned the prices. You keep going back to Joe Biden's higher prices in the fall, but real wages this year up about $1,200 so far this year because of all the jobs that are being created by the trillions that are coming in for capital spending and so on. And real wages, which is real purchasing power, dropped about $3,000 under President Biden. Biden. And so I think in the end, people are going to look at their pockets and decide, am I ahead or am I not? And I think that they're going to find that they're ahead. There's one thing that we've also noticed, if you look at sentiment, which isn't really polling, that sentiment tends to go really south when there's a government shutdown. And that's something that just happened now. And we saw a Michigan survey that was very disappointing.
Let me just ask you, prices are about to get a whole lot worse if Obamacare subsidies are not extended. There is a bill, a bipartisan bill in the House. Congressman Don Bacon is the lead Republican, or one of the lead Republicans on that, a Republican from Nebraska, to address some of the issues that Republicans have with the Obamacare premiums while also extending them. Is that something that President Trump would sign if it arrived on his desk, some sort of compromise to extend these premiums so many Americans, millions, don't have their premiums go up without any support?
Well, what President Trump has said is that he's looking forward to working together with Congress to work on this problem. The bottom line is that I think that what Republicans are saying is that when we started to put the big subsidies into Obamacare, then basically most of those subsidies went into the insurance company profits. And so, in fact, the inflation for the Obamacare premiums was about double that for private insurance. And so what President Trump has said is, let's give people the money in something like a health savings account and let them decide which Obamacare policy they want to buy, and that will help put downward pressure on these runaway premiums for Obamacare.
All right, Kevin.